trying to capture a reality and trying to capture a period in the movie, was a challenge to me. I go from the quietness of this sterile boardroom, where you can hear the hum of the air conditioning, to the insanity of Vietnam, which is actually Morocco, to helicopters diving in over these exotic locations. Gave a particular look and a stamp to each of those environments, because each of those environments talked about American history the last 25 years, one being Vietnam, which is sort of a desaturated black and white look. Berlin, which is a very sort of cold blue look, where we just took our 85 filters out. And then Beirut, which was, it's what I call a heightened reality reversal type film. First and foremost, you've got to find the right location. Berlin doesn't look anything like Berlin looked in, 75. So we went to Budapest, which looks, from all my picture reference, had that same sort of feel. It's a little threadbare, a little rundown, but we were shooting in Budapest in November, so it was overcast but beautiful. Berlin was cold and blue in terms of feel. Beirut looks like we shot it on reversal stock, so it's blown out highlights and intense colors. It's more to do with how you stage the camera and how you light, and wardrobe and haircuts and all the rest of it are secondary. It's how you design and set the stage for that feel, and that's all to do with locations, light, and camera. And I've incorporated real live action newsreel footage from CNN and CBS of, which opens the sequence in Beirut, for instance, of 85. All the newsreel stuff was shot on reversal stock. And actually in Vietnam, I didn't realize, till I did my homework, most of it was black and white. You always think of Vietnam as reversal, 16 black and white. But I can give my own spin on that feel with what I now can do digitally. And I didn't feel that having such a sort of strong point of view about the look of Vietnam, the look of Berlin, the look of Beirut was a distraction in the movie, because you're talking about three very different periods of American history. And I wanted to have a particular look and a particular feel to each of those periods. And I think it's justified, because it's not just a trick, it's tied to history.
There were many benefits to the chemistry of Robert Redford and Brad Pitt. The first was we had Robert Redford, and when we offered the part, which was a good part, to Brad Pitt, he said yes in 24 hours. And clearly the lure was being partners in a movie with Redford.
Films are often made in the destiny is sort of written in the day they're cast. And when Bob said he was interested and ultimately said he would do the movie, we knew we were onto something good.
When I read it, I'd been involved with the project for actually about 3 years, but had sort of moved away from it because it didn't seem to be getting to the place that I would have hoped. And then New Hands, it kind of came around. I decided it was really worth going for.
When I came to the project, Bob and Brad were already attached. They're perfect casting. It's a father-son team, and the two guys look alike, and come out of the peas in the pod.
Redford's one of those actors who always looks like he has a secret. He's an actor who you see, whatever he's doing, you think he's up to something, you think that there's something else he's thinking about.
Bob comes in and is very prepared and knows exactly where his character's going to be at any one moment in time.
If Bob was one guy that you knew was right for Nathan Muir, if you could just go through the entire universe and try to decide who could be the best person that you could end up to play the character of Tom Bishop, a one-time sniper as a young man in Vietnam who ends up being a master spy himself, I mean, you would just naturally say Brad Pitt.
Brad I worked with before on True Romance, and they're a perfect combination, because one's from the right and one's from the left, So you got this dynamic between the two guys. You got age and you got youth.
I'm personally fond of Brad. I like him, and we got pretty close on A River Runs Through It, so we're able to carry that familiarity a little bit into this film, although it turns adversarial, which gets pretty interesting.
Brad comes having done his homework, knows exactly where his character should be, but he's always looking for that moment, give him a spontaneity to try and fire off and do something different. He's got a tenacity. He's great looking, but he's got a sweetness and empathy, and that's what I wanted for the character.
My name's Freddie Joe Farnsworth, and I'm currently right now working as the armor/military technical advisor and helping the set designers. The set that's behind me and stuff, I came into Ouarzazate, Morocco in the middle of the desert and basically helped the art department make Little Vietnam out of it.
Quiet, guys.
Give me a light ghillie over the head, just one layer.
and I wanted back from their faces, and there'd be a little bit of ghillie on the gun as well. Where's Freddie?
And then once we got done building the set, then the weapons department had offered for me to come over and help them with the weapons because most of them are modern day weapons and things, and I know a lot about those. And now I'm helping the director and the actors with the military technical side of it.
Target located, red shirt, you have him inside.
Then you just can
Red shirt.
Can you just say red shirt located, do you have in sight?
Okay.
Target inside.
Mr. Pitt, he wants to know everything. In fact, you have to bring your books with him to make sure you're on top of your game. Like, I'll try to explain the scope, and then he wants to know every little minute detail, and if I don't know, then he starts getting a little worried, so you got to be on top of your game. He does a lot of research. One of the biggest things in the film business is trying to get rid of the civilian side of it and make them sound military, more structured, the way they talk. Their slang words, instead of saying 0900, it's 0900, things like that. When you're just talking on the radio, that's one time that you're crisp, very military, very sharp, so the person on the other end can understand what you're saying.
Right.
Is Marine snipers, from my experience in the Marine Corps, they are a breed on their own. When you go home and you're sitting back and you're doing stuff, you sit around and you're like, oh, I would do anything if something would happen so I could go do what I want to do, what I've trained for. So once you're into the position, you're fixing to take the shot, your adrenaline's going, you're ready. You stink, you're nasty, you're dirty, you're sweaty, and you love every minute of it. You can't always be exactly correct, and my whole goal is to make sure that it doesn't embarrass the Marine Corps, or any other services for that matter. That's basically why I like doing my job, to do it right, or I can never go back on base again.
Yeah, that's good there. Gun still hot, we're going right away, guys. Brad, excellent. Good, guys. Excellent. Martian, go tighter. Yeah.
When I first heard about working with Mr. Scott, everybody kind of gave me warning about him, but I get along with him real well. He's very conscious of what goes on.
100 yards out, he's closing.
He loves his filmmaking. I can tell that he's always jumping around, running around, puts a lot of effort into it. And he's good. That's why he's producing good film. He's a really good director.
My name is Mark Wolf. I'm the aerial coordinator, camera pilot, and stunt pilot on the film. We wanted to get a realistically looking Chinese helicopters, so we found an aircraft called the Mil-2, which is a real funky looking aircraft.
The honest truth was the Viet Cong never had helicopters, but when you see the sequence, it makes for a very exciting sequence, yeah.
Well, first Brad shoots the helicopter down and we attach a smoke device to the engines of the helicopter so it all smokes. Then we spin it out of control, make it look like it's about to crash, pitch the nose up and pitch the nose down and dive it at the ground, and it disappears behind some reeds, and then there's a large explosion. That was a little tricky because the Chinese helicopter, it's like a big heavy truck and it takes quite a lot of power to turn it and climb it at the same time. And you can only do one or the other, and it loses its rotor RPM, which means it loses its control if you over pitch the blade. So we had to be quite careful, yet we wanted to be very dramatic. This is a Vietnam era American helicopter that flew from about the mid-60s through to the end of the war. In fact, I flew one myself in Vietnam in 1968-69. And they're great old things. They're strong and powerful, and it was a sort of everyday vehicle in Vietnam. You know, we're carrying two principal artists, Brad Pitt and Robert Redford, both in the helicopter. Obviously, we had to make sure that things were exciting, but they were safe at the same time. And I have a great crew I've worked with for over 20 years. Steve North and Tom Cloder are the engineers on the ground, and we have strict safety procedures on the set to control access to the area where we're flying. You got to be careful not to get too excited about it and realize it's just a film you're working on. And we do everything really slowly at first, find out what our clearances is. I got my safety people on the ground watching how far the blades are away, and we get our visual marks, and then after we come back and do it quickly. Tony Scott, I first worked with in 1974, so we know each other quite well. Well, this is the first long film I've done with him.
You should be steady, right behind Bradley on the ridgeline.
Right. And he's brilliant. He's a perfectionist, which we are as well. We had a prison rooftop sequence we did which was all at night and in smoke and fog, which was fun, landing on the roof of a small building surrounded by barbed wire. And then we did some aerial filming in the center of Budapest on a tall building where Robert Redford and Brad Pitt had a tense dialogue sequence.
You've got to rely so much on the guys who are laying in the explosives that they know what they're doing, because after all, movies are just entertainment. It could be loss of life. The guys we got were infamous in terms of demolition, but they'd never done film work. They'd got a handle on what we wanted to do, how the building should break and fall to accommodate what I wanted to say with the cameras. The walls are very heavy concrete walls, so they had to cut away a lot of the building in order to, make it collapse in the right way.
The stuff in the walls is dynamite. It's just small charges of dynamite just to actually smash a slot in the wall to allow it to collapse. And in the walls along the front of the building, we just used a heavy grain detonating cord.
They had to use a tremendous amount of explosive. All the buildings surrounding the building that actually blew, we had to cover the windows either in steel plate or on wood because we're scared I'm going to blow the windows out.
We've got about 15 kilos of dynamite and 300 metres of detonating cord, and that's split into 320 separate charges.
As far as I know, from about here back, we'll actually still be standing. Charlie's designed it so when the front falls out, the actual floors fall down. So it's like a stack of cards. When we come back for the aftermath, we're going to put running water, as if the water main's gone.
We had 14 cameras, and I think in the end, I used coverage from 12 of them. The building is really symbolic of the relationships. You see these two guys building towards this climax, and the building is symbolic of Brad and Bob's fallout of their relationship. So it was key we had it on camera.
Excellent, man. Really cool.